So because I like to confess things from the pulpit, I just want to say it's been a hard week for me this week, and I feel a little broken. There's been conflict at my house, and everything feels a little unsettled. And I'm praying that things will come back to normal, or some kind of normal this week, so I can have some peace at home. So I feel maybe a little heavy. And so the service might feel heavier because of my week, and the sermon might feel a little heavier because of my week. So please bear with me. So I know over the past few weeks, I've asked you to bring the dead branches and the broken branches to add to the cross. I've asked you to do this for a reason, because this represents the things in our lives that are dry and broken and dead. So every time you add a branch to this cross, it represents one less burden you have to carry. One less worry you have to carry with you. And as we look outside, we see that the sun is getting hotter. We feel it's getting hotter, and we see signs of new life. And winter's over, and nature's in the process of healing from this long, cold winter. If the grass is brown, the leaves are dormant, and dead branches are shedding from the trees, and everything seems a little brown right now, except for our coniferous trees, which still look a little dry. And we carry, not just me, but all of you carry many stresses in your lives of family and money, work, our aches and pains, and perhaps sometimes they feel a little bit too heavy. And I think we can all agree that we live in a broken world full of war and broken homes, broken promises, broken governments, broken ecosystems. We're used to brokenness. We've actually learned to live with it, and this is a problem. We hear about another mass shooting, or we hear about a political standoff or another overdose, and we sigh. A wave of sadness might come over us. But then we just go back to what we're doing. Something might nag us in the back of our head, unsettle us. And something might even say, something's broken. This is not the way it's supposed to be. We believe that God created and created everything and called creation good. And God never made a thing called brokenness. And yet somehow this brokenness has crept into this world, and separation, division soon followed. And today we see a broken world, and we know it can be better. We know it should be better. And I believe that God has invited us to participate in this mission to repair this brokenness. We are called to make this world a better place. And this work that we're doing during Lent of forgiveness and repairing and renewing coincides with creation, as well as the hope of spring and the resurrection soon to come. Lent is a way we can start to repair the brokenness. As a follower of Jesus, I've been tasked to bring this message of reconciliation to the broken world. Reconciliation is the healing of brokenness. When Jesus welcomed and ate with the tax collectors and the sinners, he modeled the ministry of reconciliation. And there's people who are opposed to Jesus' ministry, and they just liked their society the way it was. They thought it was just fine. They learned, like us, to live with the brokenness, and they even profited from it. And so they grumbled, and when Jesus upset the status quo and showed that there's a wholeness, what wholeness can look like, Jesus tells them a story, a family marred by brokenness, a family in need of reconciliation. So we hear the story of the prodigal son, a story about suffering, brokenness, and amazing grace. Can you relate? The younger of the two sons basically says to his father, "I wish you were dead so I can have your inheritance." His father agrees, and the younger son takes his portion and travels to a distant country where he squanders all his fortune. At first glance, the younger son's lifestyle seems to be his immorality, and given his status as a self-indulgent waster. But I don't think his high life was the most immoral thing about him. I think the rift he caused in his family is actually his greatest fault. Jesus makes a point of saying that the father divides his household to fulfill his son's wishes. And then the son doesn't settle nearby, but in a distant country. With the division and separation complete, all that is needed is a famine for the younger son to notice his stupidity. When he finds himself sitting in filth among the pigs, he realizes his brokenness. He realizes the damage he's caused. And he no longer feels worthy to be called a son. So he prepares himself to live with the brokenness and to be considered a hired hand rather than a member of his family. And at this point in the parable, I imagine those people who are opposed to Jesus' ministry nodding their heads in approval. Yeah, the younger son tarnished himself. He is unclean after touching all those pigs. Of course, he should not be welcomed back home. But Jesus is not done the story. He's not finished telling the story. The younger son travels back to his father's house and prepares for the sad reality that it will never again be home. But when he is still vaguely human shape on the 12th horizon, the father sees him and runs out to meet him, and he embraces him and he kisses him. And the young man begins his speech. "I am no longer worthy to be called your son." But his father will not tolerate the separation, the brokenness no longer. "This son of mine," he says, "was dead and he's alive again. He was broken and he is found." This son of mine, with these words, the father repairs the broken relationship and the two are reconciled. And at this point in the parable, I imagine those opposed to Jesus' ministry raising their skeptical eyebrows. Now the father is unclean as well because he just touched the younger son before he purified himself with the appropriate rituals. What kind of family is this? But Jesus isn't finished telling the story yet. When the elder brother hears the partying coming from the house, he learns of the brother's return and he will not enter the house or join the party. The elder son echoes his brother's transgressions by separating himself from celebration. And when the father comes out to plead with the elder son, it shows division from the family. He calls the brother, "This son of yours," thus ignoring the sibling relationship. And rather than working like a son, he says, "For all these years, I have been working like a slave for you, like a slave, like a hired hand, like the younger son was prepared to be." But the father doesn't give up. He continues to repair the brokenness in his family. "Son," he calls his eldest son, "there is no division between us because you are always with me. And all that is mine is yours." These are the words I imagine God saying to me. You are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. Then the father attempts to heal the brotherly separation by emphasizing the son's relationship with one another. "This brother of yours was lost and has been found." And I imagine those people who oppose Jesus' ministry noticing that themselves look a lot like the elder brother. I bet their own irritation with Jesus deafens them to the reconciling nature of the father in the parable. But while the parable ends, Jesus is not finished telling the story yet. Both sons separate themselves from the family, but the father goes out and meets both sons in their brokenness. He runs up to the younger son when he's still far off. He leaves the party to be with the elder son. And Jesus continues his ministry by mirroring the actions of the father in the parable. He doesn't just wait for people to come to him. He seeks you out where you are. And eating with the taxpayers and the tax collectors and the sinners, healing the sick, touching the unclean, standing with the marginalized, dying with criminals on the cross, in the dump on the outskirts of the city. He continues to mirror the action of the Father. So we see today a broken world, and we all know it can be better. It should be better. We know there's a deep place within the work in our hearts that the world is not supposed to be broken. So how do we begin to repair it? Reconciliation begins when we realize that we are part of the problem and we are willing to do the hard work to fix it. Reconciliation begins when we become aware that we all are called to make a difference. And we can make a difference when we react to the brokenness, not with exhaustion, not with indifference, not with disinterest, but when we act with compassion, when we desire to be like the Father in the parable and go out and meet the world in its brokenness head on. But we have to stop thinking that the opioid crisis, the homeless problem, the inability to make a living wage, mental illness and racism, etc., is not our problem. We have to stop thinking this way because it is our problem. It may seem so daunting participating in God's mission of reconciliation when the brokenness of the world is just so great. It may seem impossible because it does to me sometimes. And one of the great modern day saints, Dorothy Day, reminds us to pay attention to suffering in the world and then step back and observe and do what you can. We don't need to fix all the brokenness at once. We can start in this room. We can start in this neighborhood, in this city. We don't need to take on the whole world. And we are not alone in this journey. Look around you because we have each other. And God is leading the way. But most of all, remember that Jesus is not finished telling the story yet. Amen. Please stand as you're able to sing